Blah, blah.
Ooh rah rah, these
Da
lads are
da da
under
da
bra.
da.
This is the podcast.
Cast.
Hey party people, over 12 here, and welcome to the 5th Suburban Gooner podcast. We're just going to go crazy this week. We haven't got an agenda, we're just going to go for it. Apologies if you can hear a slight buzz in the background. It's Mr. Chris Howard is doing the podcast from his garden. Aren't you, Chris?
No, I'm in the Seychelles actually.
And we've got Ben with us as well. Ben?
Hello.
So we might as well just go straight into it. We had a brilliant result against Liverpool, brilliant as a result against Dortmund. But come on, get it off your chest, guys. What did you think of the game yesterday?
What game yesterday? I've completely erased it from my memory.
Yeah, what are you talking about, Steve?
I know there was a game yesterday because unfortunately I made the trip to Manchester and the very silent and dreary trip back as well.
Yes, go on, tell us about it.
Well, it was I was behind enemy lines as well, so I was actually sat with the away fans, which was quite difficult, especially when a certain someone scored and everyone was cheering and we had to stand up, of course, along with everyone else, but we got a few looks as everyone was cheering. I was stood there with the most unhappy face that you couldn't possibly imagine. And there were two horrible individuals sat in front of us as well. Even during the minute's silence, they weren't quiet. And they were filming the stadium rather than paying their respects and just going shh, shh.
Classy.
So, yeah,
Really classy.
very classy.
Beautiful.
I guess that's what you get though when you're in such a corporate environment. And I think United, they've got like the biggest sponsorship team, haven't they? And I know that's not related to the corporate side, but they've always invested very heavily on the corporate side, and that's what happens when you have a stadium which is half full of corporates. That's a massive sweeping statement, but there you go.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, I was sat not too far actually from the director's box, and also behind us I could see Jamie Redknapp and Jamie Carragher, which is quite cool. And Jamie Carragher wasn't getting as much stick through the window as I thought he would.
Oh, that's a shame.
Yeah.
So Ben,
Probably because no one could understand him.
Yeah, probably. What do you think we were missing yesterday, Ben?
Goals.
Yeah, goals and the 3 points. I don't know, really. It's a bit drab, isn't it? Because we sort of got the bad news at the beginning of the game that Rosicky and Mertesacker are out due to sort of flu. And we missed them, didn't we? And it was just a bit, I don't know, we just didn't get going. We sort of, when we were sort of chatting about last week whether to play sort of Wilshere or even bring back Flamini, but I thought bringing back Flamini sort of hurried our play, and we were a lot sloppier with him in the team than we were against Dortmund. I don't know, what did you think?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. What about you, Chris?
We didn't really get started in the first half. The passing was off, and I thought that the little flicks that we tried to do and which seemed to have been coming off just didn't seem to come off. I thought Gazzola misplaced the ball a couple of times. There was one moment where Ramsey tried a nice little flick with the ball just running underneath him, and he just flicked it to a United player, and I think that just summed up. That was indicative of our play in the first half, and it was just a bit disappointing to see a team that is so brimming of confidence not being able to transmit that to Old Trafford. And I don't know what the hoodoo it is that they've got, but as we were saying today, Steve, at work, I looked at that Manchester United team yesterday and thought there's really not that much special about this United team. They've got weaknesses. They look like they were a little bit fragile, and an Arsenal team that perhaps had a little bit of rotation. I don't want to go into too much into the rotation stuff, but if we were a bit fresher, and let's remember that let's bear in mind that Manchester United were able to rest Van Persie, weren't they, against Sociedad? Yeah, they got a draw and they weren't very good, but they still had quite a few players that they rested, and so Moyes rotated, and so they would naturally have been fresher as a result.
Yeah, I think Wilshere did freshen up when he came on. He kind of added a bit of impetus, and Gnabry as well when he came on, a bit of speed.
A direct running.
Runs at people, definitely. And Ramsey is wasted out wide. It's not his position at all.
They were a lot more fixed, weren't they? The sort of three, they were a lot more fixed and less sort of rotation. And I think that was kind of the problem. They just didn't, like Chris said, they didn't get going. There was points where Santi had the ball in the centre circle, and there was a simple pass forward, slightly to the right, where Ramsey was standing a bit. Instead of making a simple forward pass, he went for one of his crossfield sort of pings, and it just went out of play. And I just thought that was the sort of moment you need to kind of keep hold of the ball. And it was the pattern of the first half, wasn't it? It was nervy, and I don't know what else you could call it apart from nervy.
Well, that's what Arsene Wenger said, didn't he? He said that they looked nervous, and he was even asked about whether the fatigue and the injury proneness had an impact. But to his credit, he said that shouldn't really. I didn't feel like we were fatigued in that sense. And I think it's that age-old adage: if you are confident, if your team is brimming with confidence, you don't seem to feel the fatigue as much. And I think perhaps going into this game, you know, those legs that would have been tired had we have drawn with Liverpool, lost to Dortmund, were feeling a bit fresher as a result. So I don't think fatigue was a factor, although I don't know, perhaps it was. I think we just never really got our game going. We actually looked comfortable in the defensive third and the midfield, even though we were misplacing our passes, because United weren't, dominating us as they've done in the past. It's that final third which just let us down, really. I think indicative of that was there was one moment where I watched where Gibbs picked the ball up and he started in the first half and he started to run down the line. And I thought he was going to knock it down the line and cut the ball into the box, but he just sort of checked and then moved inside, and that happened a couple of times, and I think that perhaps was a microcosm of what our game was like in that first half. Steve?
Yeah, it was the first half was, we didn't get started at all. I was really hoping that we was just going to be quick out the blocks and, kind of hit them and they wouldn't know what was coming. Especially with the results that day as well. It was a really big opportunity for us to make a real statement. I mean, we can't be too disheartened. If we'd have said 2 wins, 1 loss, but only 1 goal conceded from those 3 games, we would have probably taken that. And if at the start of the season someone would have said we'd be where we are now, we would have definitely taken that.
We would have bitten your hand off for it. We'd have bitten your hand, your arm, your other hand, the slippers from your feet, the toenails, and all the hairs on your legs. We'd have bitten them all off, chewed them up into a nice stew.
Delish.
You haven't seen my toenails, mate.
Ooh.
Oh.
I saw someone tweeted today that I think it was Ian Herbs from The Independent wrote an article about yesterday's performance, showed that David Moyes made the right decision not to sign Mesut Ozil.
Wait a minute.
that's the kind of in-depth analysis that is right up there with the broken cannons and that you find so often at the Sun. I mean, Arsenal could probably go the next 20 games in a row winning, and then on the 21st game would lose at home, having won the league already, and the response you'll get from that chief sports writer who has the same surname as myself, unfortunately for the name of Howard, saying, Arsenal are a joke, blah blah blah. It's just bitterness. It's bitterness, and it's lazy journalism at times. I mean, making comments like that without any kind of in-depth analysis. I mean, that's like saying we were right not to sign Suarez or Sturridge or go for Sturridge because we beat them 2-0. It's the kind of playground journalism that you expect from some areas of the media.
And someone got paid to write that story. That's the puzzling thing. Someone actually got paid. I mean, ignore the fact that he's top of the Premier League goal assists after a couple of games, and he hasn't, settled at all.
It's ridiculous, and he wasn't well. So
yeah,
it's ridiculous. Steve, what was the sort of when it's about 20 minutes into the game? What was the feeling amongst the crowd?
I mean, obviously, I was with the home fans, unfortunately.
Yeah, sorry, that's what I sort of meant. Did they sort of feel confident? Were they?
I think that the result, the Man City result, helped them. Because that was one moment where we could cheer with them. We're kind of watching it beforehand in the stadium, and everyone let out a big cheer, and they were really up for it. I mean, I've been to Old Trafford before, and last time it was, the atmosphere wasn't overly great, but this time they really needed something. It was a really big game for them, and they were loud. They were really loud. We could still hear the Arsenal fans, which was good. But yeah, the crowd were really loud yesterday. I think you're right, Ben. Talking about we missed Mertesacker.
Mm.
I think Vermaelen and Koscielny didn't do anything wrong. I think they both had
No, no, no.
a good game. But Mertesacker just gives you. He's always there as an option to pass from Chesney. He's very calm on the ball, and just that height as well and set pieces. It's something to think about,
Yeah.
isn't it?
I
And
do think I do think we need to give props to Vermaelen though, because he looked a bit more like the Vermaelen of a few years ago
yeah,
when he first arrived. He was attacking the ball very, very quickly. He's quite good at trying to nip in and win the ball. When he doesn't win it, it really looks shoddy and terrible. When he does win it, it's one of those things that you really sort of gives you a raw forward. As a fan, you can really cheer for that.
yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, you're right, and he had a good game against Chelsea as well. So it's two good games on the trot for him.
I think Flamini being there helped him because there was points where he sort of went up for a challenge, and like Chris said, he sort of missed it, and it looked a bit horrific. But then Flamini sort of tucked in, and that's the sort of flip side of Flamini, isn't it? Where maybe technically he sort of slows us down, but sort of defensively he's just so good.
Yeah, and he's just
It wasn't
100%.
to me. It wasn't the defence though. It was the final third where we had the issues.
Yeah, exactly.
Even in the second half, where we controlled the ball in the midfield, we were popping the ball around nicely. I don't know. Give me some thoughts on the front three, Ben, or the attacking that we had yesterday.
It was just limp, and it was back to last season sort of attack at the beginning of the season where Giroud was getting isolated, and it was the day that you kind of needed Ozil and Cazorla to sort of stand up and be counted. And for whatever reason, unfortunately, they didn't. As you said, Steve, Ramsey was out wide, and it wasn't that fluid three. He was sort of left out wide, and it wasn't until Wilshere came on that we started doing something. But then when he started getting close to their box, he started getting a nosebleed and started sort of misplacing his passes, and it was just frustration. And I don't know, and it made it worse, didn't it, when he sort of brought on Bentner, and it was very like, oh God.
That was painful, wasn't it?
That was an embarrassing moment, and that was a bit of a realization that up front we need something.
We're paper thin. We are absolutely paper thin, and I think what Steve says. Steve, you can tell us in a second what the home crowd made of that. But when I was asking Steve about that today, that just really summed up how paper thin we are when Bentner came on and the reaction of the home fans, Steve.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I say the one moment where we were together was the Man City result where everybody cheered, but actually when they brought Bentner on, everybody laughed. You could see him warming
That's
up,
embarrassing.
Everyone just started laughing.
Lol.
And even when he got the ball on the pitch and someone just screamed, he's the worst player on the pitch, like just for no apparent reason, just screamed, and we were
12. He was on the pitch for 12 minutes. I think it was 12 minutes of abject failure, and his one
almost
chance.
cost the goal at the back post, didn't he? With Smalling, he just left him, and he just ran in, and they should have finished us off there. Remember, luckily, Chris Smalling.
But his one chance to show what there is a player in there, came by just gambling, and you can forgive Giroud because he's played quite a lot of games. Because let's face it, we haven't played anyone else. And Bentner had a chance to make himself a hero by getting that bit of space in the box when Sanya, whose crossing was excellent, by the way. I lambasted Sanya for his inability. His can't cross, won't cross, or can't cross, shouldn't cross. He put in some really good balls, and there was one right towards the end, and Bentner had his chance to get his head on it, get an equaliser in the dying minutes, and become a part-time hero until we can ship him off in January. and he just completely fluffed it. He fluffed his lines. And again, I reiterate my Bentner will not score another goal for Arsenal ever again comment, because I just generally don't think. I think he'll be out of the team if we can get a striker in January, which I'm not sure we even will. But if we can, then I think we will not see Bentner score, because he will not get anywhere near the first team based on his current his cameo performances that Arsene Wenger is forlornly throwing him into matches at the end with.
Yeah, I mean, I really can't. After that, I mean, how many more opportunities can he have? He really just. There is no point in bringing him on. And I think when we were talking earlier, Chris, we were saying someone like Atpom, at least they would try and give everything they've got. So
Yeah,
between now and January, just if we need to bring someone on, give him a go.
yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree with you anymore. So,
And I agree with the
but
Sanya issue. To be honest, it wasn't until watching Match of the Day back that you realised what good crosses they were, because we were
Yeah.
kind of at the other end of we were kind of in the south stand, and you see the crosses going in, they look okay, but actually watching it back, there were some fantastic balls coming in from Sanya.
Perfect crosses.
I don't feel as down though. Do you, Ben?
After the game, initially, obviously I was, and it was just as the sort of question. I'll get you to ask that at the end, Chris, about swapping results. But initially, I was gutted, but then sort of sitting back and assessing the whole situation, I don't know how you can be, because sort of 10 days ago, or a couple of pods ago, when we were talking about the fixtures, we were sort of a bit sort of worried, and then a week on from all of that, we're in a very, very good position. As Steve said earlier, we conceded 1 goal against Liverpool, Dortmund, and United. So I don't know how you can be disappointed, to be honest.
Steve?
Yeah, I'd agree. I think again, someone put on Twitter, we've conceded 1 goal against Lewandowski, Royce, Suarez, Sturridge, Rooney, and Van Persie in 3 games. You can't be unhappy with that. 6 points, top of 2 leagues, containing some really good teams.
Yep.
And we, as you say, we would have definitely taken this at the start of the season. And the fact that it's frustrating shows how far we come. I mean, I was down. I was very down because I had to walk back to the car with thousands of people singing.
Yeah, it's depressing.
Yeah, and that was really quite depressing.
Yeah, because I went to Old Trafford when we lost 2-1. Arshavin scored, and then I don't know who equalised for them, but then Diaby scored the own goal. Do you remember
I was
that?
there, Ben. Were you in the away fan section?
Yeah, and he headed it in.
I was in the away fan section on that day as well, and
Fun.
it was a Wayne Rooney penalty because Mourinho went down.
I remember
Wayne Rooney, and that was the one that was 2 or 3 minutes before the Arshavin scored. He was scythed down inside the box by Darren Fletcher, and the referee, which was probably Howard Webb, said play on, and it was farcical. But I guess that's something that's interesting to point on. 2 things. Firstly, teams aren't intimidated by Manchester United anymore, and secondly, as a result of that, I think referees won't be intimidated by the crowd and things anymore. Just look at Michael Oliver yesterday. He didn't have a great game. He made a few mistakes, but Rooney goes down inside the box from a Giroud challenge. Referee says no. Every season, not every season, but it feels like every season at Old Trafford, we seem to have given away penalties through decisions like that, where the referees have been all too eager to put their whistle to their lips, whereas he was quite happy to be strong. So that was perhaps good to see.
I thought there was one moment actually that springs to mind that I might want to discuss, was where we had a free kick just outside the box, and it was for a left-footed player, and you had Ozil and Vermaelen standing over it, so you thought, if you're going to try and curl it in, it'd be Ozil. If you're going to smack it in, it's going to be Vermaelen. And then Vermaelen tried to curl it in, and it went horribly wrong.
That was baffling, wasn't it?
It was too far out to do it. It was that awkward one because it was too central to float it in, but then it was
too far out. What do you think Vermaelen said? No, Meza, you can't kick the ball that far. So
no, but I mean the angle. Do you know what I mean? The angle. They couldn't get a run on it. So, but then it was too close. Too far to shoot, and like Vermaelen just tried to sort of place it, but he placed it in and it went into the Emirates, I think.
Yeah, I think it did.
So.
Yeah.
It just didn't happen for us, did it? Whereas in Dortmund on Wednesday, it did happen for us. I mean, we played a very, very similar game, actually, I felt. We weren't that great in the first half. We controlled it a little bit more in the second half. We were under more pressure against Dortmund. You can tell Dortmund are a step up from United. At the moment, based on those 2 games, Dortmund are a step up from United, certainly, and they've got us under a lot more, maybe a whole row of steps.
Yeah.
I think it was a bit of a different game plan, because Dortmund we kind of contained them, didn't we? Whereas United kind of contained us in a way. They were all behind the ball at certain points in the game, and we were just knocking it left, right, and I think we really did miss Rosiski's dynamism and just speed on the ball.
Yeah, he moves the ball quickly from front to back, doesn't he?
Yeah,
that's one of the things that he likes to do, and certainly that we could have done with that impetus, a bit more direct running. But hey, let's not get too downbeat. Walcott to come back, Podolski to come back, Gnabry's looking good. We've got options, and after this international break, hopefully we'll be able to demonstrate some of those options, and we'll be able to do a bit of rotation. I'm writing a blog piece actually at the moment, which is around rotation and whether or not Arsene is afraid of rotation, perhaps because he's of the view that you get a core of players and they know if they play enough and regularly enough together, the same players, the same 11 or 12 players, they know where each other's, the areas of the pitch that they're supposed to go to. So they almost don't need to be looking. They know that there's going to be a Bakary Sagna in that part of the pitch, or a Mesut Ozil in that part of the pitch, or whatever it is. Well, Mesut Ozil at every part of the pitch. But do you know what I mean? And if you rotate too often, are those same players that are coming in going to be in those same positions that Bakary Sagna, if we've got the ball in this part of the pitch, my mate back over there will always be in that part of the pitch so I can get the ball to him. I don't know.
It's an interesting thought because I've always seen Arsenal's sort of footballers like organic. He puts them out on the pitch, doesn't he, and says, sort of create something, do what you want.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just interesting. That's an interesting way to look at it. I'm looking forward to reading that. But yeah, as you were sort of saying
www.suburbangooners.com.
Yes, follow Chris. Yeah, no, that'd be a good read. Right. But no, it's interesting what you said about Gnabry, and he's got that sort of youthfulness about him, hasn't he? He's not afraid, and against Palace we saw what he was all about, and he's very, very exciting, isn't he? I don't usually get excited about the sort of the younger players because they sort of get hyped up, don't we? We hear about them, expect them to turn out to be like Messi 2.0, but watching him, I do like him a lot, and I hope that Arsene gives him, trusts him and gives him minutes, because what's going to happen is Podolski and Walcott obviously on the way back, and he'll get less time on the pitch, and I think it's a perfect time to play him because he's something completely different.
Also, he is perhaps an individual example of perhaps Arsenal as a whole. We've flown under the radar, I think, and that's why most of the media pundits have pretty much ignored us up until now. And Gnabry's the same. Nobody's really making lots of noises. Nobody's making the Andros Townsend soundboard, or nobody's saying things like Januzaj. Everyone's talking about Januzaj and Townsend. Gnabry has had a similar impact over a short period of games, I would say, as those players, and yet not as much chirping from the media, which is absolutely fine by me. He can continue to do that. He can continue to fly under the radar, and hopefully what emerges is a fantastic player.
Yeah, definitely, and I think we need to get behind these players as well. I saw people kind of, what some of the fans are like, as soon as something doesn't go our way, you get the negativity coming out, unfortunately, which is a real shame, because it's the minority, but they kind of shout a bit. And somebody was tweeting, we're playing Manchester United, and who do we bring off the bench? Gnabry. And what was nice is people started biting back actually and saying, he's been playing really well. Have you actually been watching Arsenal? If you're frustrated with Wenger giving a young player with potential who's playing well a few games, then I'm not sure it's the right club for you.
Sounds like one of the match of the day brigades. They just watch match of the day and that's it.
Yeah. That's interesting. Chris, ask Steve that question you asked me on Twitter the other night about swapping results.
Yeah, so I said, would you swap the... was it the Dortmund for the Man United result, or was it the Liverpool for the...
No.
Would you swap the Dortmund result for the Man United result? So reverse the fixture. So we lose at Dortmund and then we beat United.
No, I don't think I would. I think
it's the correct answer. You've won a prize.
I don't think I would, because we're still top of both those leagues, and beating Dortmund was a real statement. Although we lost to Man U, it was a bit of a shoddy goal where the zonal marking didn't quite work in that situation where he just ran up and headed it in. And actually, if you look back at the stats, although we weren't great, we still had more possession, more opportunity, same on target, and our territorial advantage was better than theirs as well. So I think no, I wouldn't swap them.
Exactly, and I think that's the conclusion that Ben and I essentially came to. If we beat Marseille at home, still not foregone conclusion, but if we beat them at home, we'll have 12 points. I think that should, I've got a feeling that should be enough to see us through. I don't know why. I know we could all end up with 12 points, and there's these head-bangingly painful permutations that Arsenal.com have put onto their website, which just left me in a whole wilderness of like empty brain, cavernous, not understanding what the hell they were talking about. But I think we'll go through on 12 points, and that would be enough. And then I think if we can then just recover from the defeat against United after the international window, then and with a win against Southampton, then I think we should be able to get back on track.
Who were playing really well actually, Southampton, so that's not going to be.
Yeah, exactly. You got any questions for us, Steve? Do we have any questions coming? This is the bit where, because it's completely unscripted, you say no questions at all.
I had some questions, but they were silly ones. They were from a Fulham fan. Would you swap Martin Jol for Arsene Wenger, please?
No.
I said, I'm sure you can answer that one yourself.
It depends. It depends on what the role is. If the role is to buff up his forehead or his head really shiny so that you can see your face in it, then yeah, because I think Arsene Wenger's hair wouldn't allow you to do that. So I would swap Martin Jol if with Arsene Wenger, but only as the official man to see my head in his bald.
Chris,
Yes.
are you alright?
Why?
Like in the head?
Not really, no. It's late. You're keeping me up late.
And then one of the
PJs.
other ones.
You're keeping me up late. I'm in my PJs and I've already brushed my teeth. And I need to go to bed.
One of the other questions I had was from Call of Lukey, and on the way back we stopped at a station, a service station, and we went in the Waitrose there, and they had because they were like, they were going out of date the next day, so they had chicken on a stick, and then they had southern fried chicken balls for 25p a packet. So we brought them all, and we ate them all on the way home. So his question was, would you prefer chicken on a stick or southern fried chicken balls?
Chicken on a stick. Something scares me about chicken balls. Not comfortable with that.
I like the idea of southern fried chicken balls, so I'm going to split the questions and let Steve have the final
Chris can
answer.
have all the balls.
I'll tell you, the final answer is literally it got to the point where me and Luke had one southern fried chicken and one chicken on a stick left, and I took the chicken on a stick, so me and Ben win 2-1.
Yes.
Well done, you crazy cats.
Cool, okay, guys, just to finish up then, we spoke about this before, but it's kind of really an on topic at the moment considering what happened. We talked about Lewandowski before, how that would be great, but realistically, Chris, you don't think we're going to sign a striker?
Nope.
But who would you want us to go after realistically, if we're not talking about the kind of Lewandowski who we think is pretty much going to Bayern Munich?
Well, providing that he doesn't turn out to be a convicted rapist and goes down for like 5 years or whatever it is, or 10 years, or I don't know. But the rumours that, allegedly, the rumours that I've heard is that Loic Remy could be sentenced next month because he's on trial or something like that. I don't know the details. I don't know whether or not it's true or not. I've not seen very much in the press. But if Loic Remy was available, and let's obviously rape is a deplorable thing, and if he is convicted of doing that, then the man should never be able to play another football game again in his life, as far as I'm concerned. But from a footballing point of view, his form at the moment is such that I'd say he would be an able deputy to Giroud's Loic Remy. Ben?
I would say, does anyone know if Croatia are going to the World Cup?
No, they're not. I think.
They're not going. Well,
definitely not. I'm
sure they're not. You're going to say Eduardo, aren't you?
No, I'm going to say Mandzukic from Munich. I was being a bit sad and sort of Googling because I was sort of thinking about what he's going to do, and if they were going to the World Cup, it might have been maybe a bit more easier because he would have wanted game time, but I think he's the closest thing you're going to get to Giroud in terms of sort of work rate and that team player of a striker, and I think he'd fit our system perfectly, so he would be my shout, to be honest.
Good shout.
That's a good shout. We were talking about Remy early today, Chris, weren't I? And I'm saying I'd like us to kind of have a look at him. And it's a bit of a shame that we didn't look at him before he went to Newcastle. I don't know if we could get him out of the loan situation, but if we could, it'd be worth a look. I'm just looking actually on ESPN. 2nd of September 2013, Loic Remy has been rebailed until November after he was arrested earlier this year alongside his cousin and friend on suspicion of rape.
Yeah, that's to butt in. That's what cancelled it. Apparently, that Arsenal obviously knew about what was going on and then bailed because that's not his type of person and not the type of person we want at our football club. So
Yeah, definitely.
that's the reason.
Mandzukic, though, I think that's a good shout. I didn't even think about that. If they're going after Lewandowski, then
Because he hasn't been playing as well, and I just thought if they're going to the World Cup, it's a possibility that he's going to want game time, and half season on loan at us would be ideal.
yeah. Who
Makes
have they
it
been
so.
playing up front? 'Cause last time I watched them, they had Muller up front. Who's he been playing?
Yeah, they had Muller up there. Sort of talking about playing Goetze up there, but yeah, Mandzukic hasn't been getting game time. It's funny enough though, there was an article in Bild, and they were talking about how Lewandowski's not going to fit into their system, and they haven't even bought him yet. Well, they have, but it's not official, and they're talking about why he isn't going to fit.
Unless you've got anything final to say, I think we can finish up there. Chris, have you got anything you want to say before we go?
No.
Ben?
No, just it's not as bad as it seems, and we're doing well.
We are. Reasons to be cheerful.
Yes,
Yes.
reasons to be cheerful. Up the arse.
Up the Arsenal. And now I'm going to look at Mandzukic loads.
Yeah, go on. And you can thank me when we sign him.
All over
Yeah.
them.
Okay, cheers guys. Suburban
Thank
Gooners
you.
out.
Bye.
Peace out. Whoa.